Imagine the scene. An seemingly harmonious family falls apart in a matter of seconds when a grandmother, without any ceremony, snatches from a child's hands the gift so dreamed for the beginning of her school adventures. This is not for a 6-year-old girl. My true grandson is needed, he declares coldly, ignoring his eyes full of water and the broken heart of the little. And the worst? While her mother tries to defend her daughter, her husband just shrugs, accusing her exaggerated. This is not any story. It is a raw portrait of how abuse of power and lack of empathy can destroy ties that should be sacred. Good night, dear listeners. I'm Andre Branco, and today, here on the Family Secrets channel, let's dive into a case that will mess with your emotions. A battle between maternal love, arrogance, and the painful reality of those who feel invisible within their own home. Prepared? So follow every detail of this narrative that looks like a soap opera script, but it is pure real life. Elizabeth Mendonça has always seen herself as the guardian of justice within her four walls. At 58, she reigned absolutely in her 3-bedroom apartment inheritance of the late husband, where each object, each decision, went through her sieve. Especially when it was the grandchildren. For her, there was a clear hierarchy. On the one hand, Artem, her grandson of blood, the son of Roman's first marriage, his only legitimate heir. On the other, Maria, Kira's 6-year-old daughter, her daughter-in-law, the result of a previous relationship. A tolerated but never truly accepted intruder. Life followed its course. Roman, 32, prospered as a master's master of construction, with a salary that guaranteed comfort. Kira, in turn, unfolded as a manicure in a beauty salon, gaining well enough to contribute to expenses. But none of this mattered to Elizabeth. After all, they lived in their house, and she didn't let anyone forget about this detail. Every skewed look, every acid comment served to remember Kira of its place, that of a permanent guest, never a factual member of the family. At the end of August, with the first day of school, Kira decided to give Maria a new smartphone. It wasn't a whim, it was security. A way of always being around, even at a distance, amid the unknown corridors of the school, the strange colleagues, the teachers still faceless. Now Mom can call if you need it, he explained, while the radiant girl squeezed the pink device with bright cover against treasure. Roman, indifferent, just grunted something about children and technology too early. Elizabeth, however, kept silence, but his eyes betrayed a shadow of disdain. The big day has come. Maria returned home euphoric. The teacher was kind, her friends, fun, and best of all, there was even a shelf in the room to carry the cell phones. We can only use in playground, Mom, he said, shaking the phone as a trophy. Kira smiled, relieved. Roman, immersed on his tablet, barely lifted his eyes. Elizabeth, as she dried her dishes, watched everything with a cold smile. That scene bothered her more than she was willing to admit. The next day, the nightmare settled. Maria sat at the kitchen table to do the homework, with her cell phone next to the notebooks. Without warning, Elizabeth advanced, pulling the device out of his hands. "Grandma, why did you get my phone?" asked the girl confused. The answer came dry, 6-year-old doesn't need it. My grandson is that he will wear it. Artem, his favorite, needed a new one. And point. Maria tried to argue, the tears dripping, but it was the mom who bought for me. Elizabeth was relentless. Nothing here is yours. You live in my home for charity, so don't complain. Kira, who had arrived from the street in time to hear the desfec. Ho, felt the blood boil. Return the phone now, he demanded, the trembling voice of anger. What do you think you are doing? The answer was a smile of superiority. I do what I want, in my house. You're nobody here. Accept that. Mary, between sobs, repeated, It's mine, Grandma. It's not fair. But for Elizabeth, justice was a flexible concept, and she always shaped him to her advantage. That's when Roman arrived. Seeing the scene, he just sighed tired. What's going on? He asked, already presenting the storm. Kira explained, eager for support. Her mother stole Maria's cell phone to give to Artem. Tell her that this is unacceptable. Roman hesitated. He looked at his mother, then to his wife, how to weigh the words. Mom, isn't it too early for such a phone? He risked, in a tone that was already a sentence. Kira didn't believe what she heard. Early. Romano, she took something I bought for my daughter. He got annoyed. Stop screaming. My mother just wants the best. And Artem really needs a new cell phone. We buy another simpler for Maria. Kira stared at him, horrified. Are you kidding? Your mother humiliates my daughter, and you defend her. Don't start with drama, he said impatiently. Artem is my son. Why do you do so much scandal? It was then that Kira understood, there was no battle to win. For Roman, the mother's loyalty would always come before, even if it meant ignoring the cry of an innocent child. And Elizabeth, triumphantly, knew that once again her reign was safe. After all, in your home, the rules were hers. And whoever dared to challenge them would learn sooner or later the price of rebellion. The son would always be by your side. Roman was an obedient boy and remained an obedient man. See, Kiruchka, sled Elizabeth, with a poisonous sweetness. My son understands me. So you don't need scenes here. The phone stays with me, and I will give it to Artem when it comes over the weekend. Moshe, sitting silently at the table, looked alternately at her mother and stepfather, without understanding why adults turned something so simple into a battle. The phone was hers, bought by his own mother. But somehow everyone decided on her. Kira felt the anger grow inside her, not over the phone that was just the drop that overflowed an ocean of accumulated humiliations. The sharp comments of the mother-in-law, the contempt veiled by Moshe, the cowardly complicity of her husband. All of this was rotting for months. Well, she said suddenly with a calm that scared to herself. Stay with the phone. Roman and Elizabeth exchanged an incredulous look. They expected shouts, tears, an epic fight. But Kira, for the first time, gave up fighting. Moshe, get your things, he added, with a firmness that did not admit replicas. We go away. Where? He frowned Elizabeth, with a tone of superiority that no longer intimidated. To my mother's house, said Kira, dries. There, at least, respect my daughter and don't steal their gifts. Kira, don't overdo it, Roman interrupted with poorly disguised panic. Where are you going? We are a family. What family? Laughs Kira, bitter. A family where they call my daughter strange and take her what is hers. Where does her husband choose his mother instead of his wife and stepdaughter? No, thank you. He took Moshe by the hand and took her to the room. The girl followed, confused, but feeling in the air that this place was no longer safe. Kira, stop, shouted Roman, as if only then realized the gravity of what was happening. Don't do crazy things. But she no longer heard him. Half an hour later, they left the apartment with 2 bags. Elizabeth, planted in the corridor, still held the phone like a trophy, but her triumph sounded hollow. Go, then, he spat with a disdain that could not hide the fear. Let's see how long you can handle us without us. Roman would oscillate between the mother and the closed door, paralyzed. It ended up, muttering that Roth would calm down and come back. But deep down, he knew, something had broken forever. Kira and Moshe went to Galina Fyodorovna's house, Kira's mother, in a modest neighborhood, in a small apartment, but full of heat they hadn't felt for a long time. The grandmother received them with open arms, no questions, just with the certainty that something very serious had happened. Mom, can we spend some time? Kira asked, when Moshe fell asleep on the couch, exhausted. Of course, daughter, Galina answered, caressing her face. What happened? And Kira told everything. The grandmother heard in silence, shaking her head, until she released, firm, you did well to leave. This is not tolerated. And Roman? Kira smiled, without joy. He chose. He called me hysteric. He defended his mother. The next day, Romano called every half an hour, begging him to come back. Kira didn't answer. Elizabeth, in turn, was furious. It had a quick surrender, but the daughter-in-law, for the first time, didn't give in. Romocha, you have to make her back, he demanded. How will our reputation be? A woman who leaves home because of a phone. But Roman was beginning to understand, it was never the phone. 3 days without Kira were enough to miss not only his wife, but the laugh of Moshe, the noise of his footsteps around the house. The apartment looked like a tomb. Meanwhile, Kira wasted no time. He found a studio in a good neighborhood near Moshe's school. His manicure salary did not allow luxuries, but could live with dignity. A week later, Romano appeared at Galina's house, head down. "Tell Kira I realized my mistake," he said. "May they come back, I solve everything with my mother." "And Moshe's phone?" Galina cut directly. "Of course we returned," he rushed. "I already talked to her," she agreed. But Kira had already decided. He went out to find him and, with a calm that disarmed him, said, "I'm renting an apartment. Moshe and I'm going to live alone." "What do you mean?" stuttered Romano, lost. "We are a family. I change, I talk to my mother." "You have already shown who you are," interrupted Kira, tired. "At the decisive moment, you chose your mother, not your family. How to trust you after that?" He tried everything. Promises, oaths, tears. But Kira was a rock. "Maybe it's wrong," he confessed to his mother after Romano left. "But I can't risk Moshe's peace. Once he cheated on me. It can betray again." 2 weeks later, they moved to the new apartment. Moshe adapted quickly, recovering a tranquility she had not known for years. "I was no longer afraid that they would take things, nor be called the other." Romano continued to insist without success. Elizabeth pretended indifference, but agreed in the eye. The son had become bitter, the distant grandson. The house, once full of life, was now a mausoleum of regrets. Until an afternoon, after another attempt fails to convince Kira to return, Roman and Elizabeth collapsed, not by surprise, but out of pain. Artem, who had arrived for the weekend, saw the new phone and asked where he came from. Elizabeth, proudly, told how the rescued of that girl to give to the true grandson. "Grandma, did you stole Moshe's phone?" The boy was horrified. "How can you?" "Oh, Artemechka, does not overdo it," the grandmother stirred. "I just got one thing she didn't need for you." "This is theft," the grandson insisted firmly. "I won't use stolen things. And Moshe is cool. Why do you mistreat her?" Artem refused to accept the phone and demanded that he be returned. He threatened to tell his mother everything. Elizabeth was in shock. "I did not expect this reaction from the favorite grandson." Roman, in turn, couldn't stand it. Seeing his own son judging his actions was the final blow. "Mom, are you satisfied?" he asked bitter. "Because of your greed, I lost my family. Romocha, I just wanted the best." "Better to whom?" he exploded. "For Artem. He is refusing your gift." I was without a wife, without stepdaughter. What do we earn?" That night they cried both. Roman, for the family he had destroyed. Elizabeth, for the plans that ruined and the disappointment of the grandson that both Mimara. Kira learned of the episode by Artem, who called to apologize for her grandmother's behavior. The boy even offered to return the phone personally to Moshe. "Thank you," Artem was thrilled. "Kira, you are a good boy." "Moshe is too," he replied. "Too bad the grandmother doesn't understand." A year later, Kira asked for divorce. Roman did not resist. "I knew there was no return." He paid the pension up to date and saw Moshe whenever he could. The generous girl still loved him, despite everything. Elizabeth agreed a decade that year. He never forgiven himself for destroying his son's family. Artem spent less time with her, and when I was going, I always asked Moshe. And I always asked to send a hug to the sister. Kira, 2 years later, found another man, Dmitri, a kind and understanding doctor who loved Moshe as if she was a daughter of blood. They got married, and the girl finally won a family where no one called her the other. Roman, in turn, never rebuilt life. He drowned at work, trying to drown out the guilt that consumed him. The mother still lived with him in the same apartment, but what was left between them was just the weight of a thick silence. Elizabeth Dmitrievna never interfered with her son's life. Not that it mattered, the damage was already done. The pink cell phone was still stored in the nightstand drawer, a relic of a mistake that disabled lives. Sometimes she took him off, held between the trembling fingers and stared, as if that object could return the time. A single reckless gesture, a misplaced choice, and this is the legacy: a shattered family, a barely greeted grandson, a daughter-in-law that would never return. Moshe grew up with an unshakable certainty: justice is not a favor, it is a right. The history of the phone taught her to lift her voice, not allowing anyone to trample her dignity. Kira, in turn, never regretted leaving. Sometimes a firm position is worth more than a lifetime of humiliation. And the price of freedom, she knew, is not measured in coins, but in peace not to bow the spine to anyone.